Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2021 Wyndham Championship DFS Tactics show. As usual, just a couple announcements. We got a lot to get into. So first off, chat is open. Join me. Ask any questions that you have. Make fun of me for my betting for the WGC last week. Whatever you want to talk about in chat, it's open. I love the interaction. Hop in and let me know what you all are wanting to see. Secondly, social media down in the description. Follow me there, as that's where my betting cards for each week will be. I'll put mine up for the Wyndham tonight after the show. And then, as always, all statistics are provided by Fantasy National. I say it every time. I've said it multiple times over each episode. It's an amazing resource. If you're not a member yet, you're doing it all wrong. That's what I have to tell you. You're doing it all wrong. It's going to make you much more intelligent gambler, much better DFS player. It's well worth the investment. Quick intro, but let's get into the DFS tactics of the Wyndham Championship. And we'll transition over here and start with the mixed condition model that we kind of ended off with Monday night on the Data Dive show. Before I go any further, it's two important things to know, or two important withdrawals. Louis Oosthuizen and Patrick Reed are not playing this week. They have withdrawn from the tournament. So make sure, if you've already submitted your lineup, that you go and change that. And if you've placed a bet on them, well, sorry. Hopefully you can appeal, get that money back. For a lot of times I make sure I don't, I wait until as long as possible to place those bets is what I'm trying to say. So, especially for DFS though, if you've already submitted your lineups, make sure you go and change those. Louis and Patrick Reed have both withdrawn. But going into the mixed condition model here, just a quick run through and explanation for why I have chosen what I've done. If you want a more full explanation and my thought process through it, go check the Data Dive show. Approach is very key here at Sedgefield, and I just prefer iron players as opposed to putters. So most of the weight in the approach. I wanted to see who played short, easy courses well. I wanted to see who gave themselves the most opportunities on those courses. Proximities that most of the approaches here, 8% more approaches than the tour average come from 150 to 175. I believe tour average is about 20%, and here at Sedgefield it's 28%. That's quite a discrepancy. So most approach shots are going to come from this range. So I've got a base, a long term who's just good at it, and then I put a little bit less weight, but still wanted to see who's hot or who's dialed in recently from that range. Par fours are so extremely important here. It's a par 70, and it's one of the very few courses that strokes gained par 4 outweighs strokes gained par 5. So I wanted to see who plays par 4s well. I wanted to see who plays the majority of the par 4 links at Sedgefield the best. There's that. I also wanted to see who plays the length of par 4s on short, easy courses. And then finally, for putting, I want to see a base term of who putts well on fast Bermuda greens, who's hot right now on fast Bermuda greens. And then, sorry, let me scroll down for you. And then 3 putts are very common here because the greens are so fast. They're undulating. They're fairly large as well, too. They're about tour average, which normally doesn't mean large, but they are for the course designer. Don Ross is notorious for small, undulating greens. Well, these are undulating, but they're tour average, so they're large for Don Ross. So that's why I also put a little bit of strokes gained total for Don Ross designs in here. And I haven't changed this from Monday night. So this is my ranking sheet for the Wyndham this week. And again, I just starred the top 25 so I can get a view of who is being. Sorry, let me pull it up here. Who is projected ownerships? I thought I had it. Let me pull that up over here. Let it load. So I'm going to sort this by salary real quick and go through it fairly quickly. So we start off with, and remember, Louis Oosthuizen and Patrick Reed have withdrawn. So in the 10,000 range, we have Hideki at the top at 11,000. You have Webb at 10.6, Will Zalatoris at 10.3, and Jason Kokrak at 10,000 even. And of those four, it is Webb and Hideki that are the two pretty clear choice picks for me in this range. I'm a complete fade on Will Zalatoris. He has not been playing well lately. I know he has been. He was really hot, the talk of the tour there early this summer, but I mean he had a top 10 finish at the St. Jude, but he had a run there where he wasn't playing well. Now, an 8th at the PGA is nothing to sneeze at, and everybody knows about the runner-up at the Masters. But outside of these major events, the Rocket... Oh, shoot. What had happened there? You have the Rocket Mortgage. That was... I mean, he makes the cut, but it's, not great by any means. He misses the cut at the U.S. Open. It's a very middling performance of the Charles Schwab. I have not been on the Will Zalatoris train lately. And mainly it's because of this putting. And yes, normally I don't value putters all that much, and I don't. But he's had a consistent run of poor results on the greens. I'm generally accepting of guys who are volatile. They'll show weeks of good and show weeks of bad. And certainly he's had good weeks, including last week at the WGC. He had a very good week. He had a good week at the Heritage. He had a good week at the Genesis earlier this year. But when you show consistent runs of very poor performances, and these aren't just losing a half a stroke or a stroke. I mean, here at the PGA, he lost only 3/10 and still got 8th because he was just all world with his irons that week. But he's losing almost 3.5, 2.5, 4.5, 2 strokes. This is a lot of strokes to give up on the green, and the tournaments that have been played recently, the Rocket Mortgage, the Charles Schwab, to a little bit less of an extent, but still important to St. Jude, and this week especially, putting is such a key element on these at these courses that I'm fading Will Zalatoris, and I have been recently. I know a couple times I've been saying that I didn't have much of an opinion, positive or negative. I'm starting to be more negative when we come to DFS purposes for Will Zalatoris, especially for the price that you're paying. And we'll get into the wind here soon. This isn't a positive for Will Zalatoris either. It's projected to be pretty calm, except for Sunday. But that's just the reasoning why he's so low in my model. Other than obviously, just the numbers that I'm valuing, he hasn't been high on. But I'm not. I think that he's going to be an amazing player for years to come. He's going to be one of the stars of the tour. He's very, very young. He's very good. But right now, until he shows some kind of somewhat consistent form with the putter, I don't even care if it's like this every week. You can go positive and then go negative 3.1, but come back, come back positive a little. Do something other than lose 2.5 to 4.5 strokes basically every week. And so if Will Zalatoris does well this week, I'm not going to. Again, like I said, for the price. So he's my clear fade in this range. And looking at the ownerships, right now you have Webb Simpson at 18.5%, and that makes a whole lot of sense. I know I was on him at the WGC. He didn't play particularly great. He had one and a half days where he played very well. But this is another course that sets up well for Webb Simpson. It's a short course. It generally plays pretty easy. It doesn't require length, so anything that requires length, Webb's usually at a disadvantage. Webb is also, his best putting surface is Bermuda. He's in really good. I say he didn't play all that well. He still had a top 15 at the WGC after a top 20 at the Open. Webb's not the kind of person that's going to be flashy. He's not the name of John Rahm and Dustin Johnson, and obviously not, because he's not at the peaks. Those two players and Justin Thomas's and the Rory's, they're on a different level. But Webb is a consistent contributor, consistent, very good player on the tour across multiple years now, and he's just not flashy. He's just not the name value, the name power that these other guys are. It does concern me that he's losing strokes on approach, and that's definitely going to have to change this week. Approach is so very pivotal at this course. Wedges and putting in particular. So the fact that he's losing strokes on approach is worrisome, but he still had a top 15 losing 2.5 strokes with his irons. So if he comes back to relative norm, he's only gained a half a stroke in the past 5 events. The last 10 he'd gained 1 stroke, but in his career, he's gaining 1.5. Just come back to gaining a half a stroke and keep these numbers the same. The gaining 2 around the green, gain 3 on the green, off the tee. You're looking at a very, very competitive Webb Simpson this week. So it's no surprise to see him the second highest projected owned player and the highest in this range at 18.5%. And to be quite honest, that is where the chalk I'm going to eat this week is. I like Webb Simpson this week. I liked him a lot last week. It kind of bit me in the butt, but I'll go back on that train. I just will. I think Webb is well suited for this course. And then elsewhere in the 10Ks, there's not a lot of pivot room here. You've got Webb at 18.5. You've got Jason Kokrak at just above 14.5. I'm kind of lukewarm on Kokrak. There's quite a few things that I don't like about him. Mainly this yardage, 135th and 99th. He doesn't seem to do well from this yard, the key approach area. But there's a lot of things he does do well. He's very good on Don Ross courses. He's very good at avoiding 3 putts. He gives himself a lot of opportunities. So it's a mixed bag with Kokrak. I've kind of used the term with Zalatoris in the weeks prior. I just don't have a strong feel, positive or negative for him. I think he's an okay play. And if you're trying to get a quote premier player in this field, and you can't afford Webb or Hideki, but Kokrak's okay. I would try to find the money elsewhere or bring Kokrak down and build a more balanced team if that's where your money's falling right now. That would be my suggestion. But Kokrak's okay. If there is a pivot in this area, it is Will Zalatoris. He's only at 10.5%, but that's still not a true pivot. And of course, I'm not going to go the Will Zalatoris route. As you see, he's 84th in my model. But, if you do feel comfortable with Will Zalatoris, you think last week was the sign of good things to come with the flat stick, then, you're going to be doing better than I will be this week. That's how I'll phrase it. But I like Webb. I like Hideki. Hideki's at 13, almost 14%. So there's no true pivot in this range other than Zalatoris. Again, for me, I'm just going to eat the Webb chalk. This is the chalk that I'll eat for this week, and I'm going to find my uniqueness, find my leverage elsewhere on the price board. Moving down to the 9Ks, make sure that I'm not scrolling too far for you all. There we go. We have Brian Harmon at 99, Fleetwood at 97, M 96, Henley 94, Wolf, Scott, Kim, and Bubba Watson 93 and below, decreasing by 100 respectively. So in this range, there is one very, very clear chalky play, and it's Russell Henley. And I can't disagree. He's second in my model. He's the number one projected ownership person right now at 18.5%. Webb is slightly behind him, just under 18.5. I've also found myself using a lot of Russell Henley this week. I mean, he's any of the putting stats, he's going to be struggle in the models, but everything else is pretty elite. He's number one in the proximity, and short term. He is seventh in long term. He's third in strokes gained approach. He's just elite in everything else other than the putting, and he has shown that he has he's gotten hot with the putter at times. I mean, overall, he's been positive in all of these metrics here. Bermuda is by far his best putting surface. So I'm much more willing to bet on this as opposed to Zalatoris in the putting realm. Now, yes, Henley can lose 3.5, 4 strokes, like Will Zalatoris did, and he'll miss the cut or do poorly. You also didn't see Will Zalatoris gain 8 strokes on the field. You didn't see, often when Will Zalatoris gained strokes, it was gaining 3.5 to 4, which is great, which is absolutely fantastic. But you don't see the weeks like this where you're gaining 8 plus strokes on the green. You come back to 2020, he gained 9 strokes in an event. I mean, this is look back in the rear view, laugh at your competition, lap the field style numbers. So when Russell Henley gets hot with the putter, I mean, you see 9 strokes gained, gets a third. 8.2 strokes, he gets a third. And in the quality of the field that you have this week, Russell Henley, somebody else. I'm eating my chalk at the top of the price board is what I'm doing this week. A lot of times I'll eat the chalk in the middle of the price board just because I don't see a lot of value elsewhere around that part of the pricing range. I don't see a lot of value outside these two guys in this area of the price board. I just don't. I can see an argument for Hideki for sure. I've actually built lineups with both of them in there and really tried to find my leverage, a lot further down in the the pricing board. But Henley, I can't argue at all for people using Henley. I am very, very, very much on the Henley train this week. I have a bet on him, all of that stuff. And at the price point being in the mid 9s, you can get a Henley and perhaps maybe a Webb or a Zalatoris if you believe in Zalatoris, and still not plummet all the way down into the low 6Ks if that's what you're wanting to do. So I like Henley a lot. He's at 18.5, again, the most projected ownership player. So understand that when you're clicking him into the lineup, more than likely you're going on a 5v5 against the rest of the competition. Just be aware of that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying don't do it. Just be aware of it. Elsewhere in the 9Ks, you've got Sung Jae is at 13%. He's been playing a little bit better as of late. I've certainly tried to hit Sung Jae before he comes back to what I think is his form. But he's still just not quite there yet. He's certainly starting to come around, and Bermuda is certainly his best surface. But even so, I mean, he had a middling to poor performance at the WGC. A month ago, he was pretty mediocre at the John Deere. He did have a top 10 at the Rocket Mortgage. U.S. Open was okay. He top 20 the PGA earlier this year. He's not quite all there. And I'm certainly going to try to find Sung Jae before he gets on a roll. because we've seen him on a roll last year when he was a rookie. I mean, he was all world, and the guy plays a lot too. So I mean, maybe this is the week with the Bermuda and the calm, but he's there yet. But he is the second most projected ownership in this range. He's at just under 13%. If you're at 13%, I'm okay fading it. I'm okay getting away from it. Now, if he were 8%, then I could be talked into Sungjae. But at 13%, I'll be willing to take the risk that he has another middling week. I'm much more confident in Russell Henley and eating that chalk than trying to project Sungjae to be good this week and still eat some chalk. The only other middling ownership person is Brian Harman at 99. Everyone else is a pure pivot. I mean, Tommy Fleetwood is at 3% right now. You got Matthew Wolff at 5.5. Adam Scott's at 4. Siwoo's at 7.5. So everybody other than those three in the 9Ks is a pivot. Russell Henley, I can't argue with using against him. Excuse me, wrong phrasing. I can't argue reasons that you shouldn't use him other than ownership. I mean, and he's in the middle of the 9Ks. It's not like he's a Brian Harman price. I'm okay fading Harman this week. This course should suit him well. Length, isn't a big factor. Generally, he plays well with wedges in his hands. I'm just out on Brian Harman, especially since he's at the upper part of the 9Ks. And again, Sungjae, I might have a little exposure to Sungjae. Try to hope I get lucky in the contest where I pick him and the others don't. But if Henley's 200 less, yes, he's got a lot more ownership. But I'll take Henley and save the 200 elsewhere, use the 200 elsewhere. I mean, that basically goes from Zalatoris to Webb. I mean, you need to find 100 more, but that's basically. I would much rather have Henley and Simpson, even though that's a lot of chalk, because I'm confident that I'll find, in a 4v4, I'll find leverage elsewhere lower in the board. That's what I'm here to help you to do as well. But this week especially, I'm much more comfortable taking the chalk up in the price board than it is in the middle to lower end of the price board. So that's the 7Ks. Excuse me, that's the 9Ks. And again, guys, chat's open. Let me know what you're thinking, what you want to see, who you want to talk about, or if I'm going through the price ranges too fast, just let me know. But moving down to the 8Ks, we have Bobby Mack at 89. Looks like, do we have one of each? Yeah, so decreasing by 100 on each name. It's Bobby Mack, Kevin Na, Gary Woodland, Ricky Fowler, Seamus Power, Kevin Kisner, Kevin Streelman, Sebastian Munoz, Charles Schwartzel, and then 2 at 8,000 of Justin Rose and Eric Van Rooyen. In this range, there's two very clear plays that people are gravitating toward. Seamus Power at 8,500, again right in the middle of the board, coming off a win at the Barbasol. He played in the Barracuda, I think. Yeah, I think he was in the Barracuda. We don't have those stats yet, but I mean, what's there to say about Seamus Power? He is on the definition of a heater. 6 straight top 20s, including the win off the Barbasol. I can't recall off the top of my head how he did at the Barracuda. But, I mean, he's just been in a different world by his standards lately. Starting with the top 10 of the Byron Nelson, 2 top 20s, 8th, and a 1st. Fortunately, if you were a follower of the show, you knew that I was on Seamus Power at the Barbasol, so hopefully you joined me in hitting him. Hopefully you got a better price than I did at 16-1, but a win's a win. But so Seamus Power, again, if this is a chalk you want to eat and you're willing to, find leverage at Will Zalatoris or lower or whatnot, then sure, I can't argue against Seamus Power at this price point either. I'm just not going. I'm going to look elsewhere in the 8Ks for my leverage if I'm around this area. The only other play right now in this area is Kevin Streelman at. Okay, there's two. Kevin Streelman at 13 and some change, and Charles Schwartzel's at 13 and some change. So there's Schwartzel. He's ranked 24th in my model. Okay. He's bad at 3 putts. Generally not good as of late. Again, this is par 4, last 12 on short, easy courses. This is proximity of the last 12. So he hasn't been good as of late. But his baseline numbers say he should be a lot better. So take that for what you want. And then Kevin Streelman. Yeah, Kevin Streelman, again, not very good from the proximity. He's just not good from this proximity. No, that's Munoz, excuse me. Yeah, he's not had some good things as of late either. He's not particularly good at short, easy courses. Let's see, where else? Yep, he's not good on the distance of these par 4s on short, easy courses. So, again, Kevin Streelman, if you're telling me that these are the second and the third most owned in this range, those are easy fades for me. Seamus Power being the most, it was already a fade. I can understand the reasoning why, because he's playing so well. But if you're going to tell me he's the most chalky player in this range, it's an easy fade for me. I have Kevin Na start, and that might be surprising to some. Again, this is more of a narrative like Webb Simpson, Kevin Na. Some of the comp courses, remember from Monday when I was giving you the comparable courses, one of those is Wailea in Hawaii, the Sony Open. And why is that a comparison course when it's on, completely different side of the country? I mean, it's in the ocean if you're being factual, but Wailea is a very short course, generally plays easy. It has Bermuda greens, so the direct comparisons there are there. It's just not the same part of the country. Kevin Na generally, he won the Sony this year. He also plays the Amex fairly well. The Amex is another direct comparison. He's generally a good putter. So yeah, I don't think off the tee is going to be a major factor this week, especially length. Now you do have to hit the fairways, but length is not the biggest issue here. So I think Kevin Na is pretty well positioned to play well this week. Now, having said that, again, he won the Sony earlier this year. He did miss the cut at the Amex. I think his Amex record's pretty good. Yeah, so I just happened to glance down. He was top 20 last year at the Amex. He didn't play it the year before. So again, these comp courses, Kevin Na generally plays well. So I think, this sets up well for Kevin Na. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be on him. He's projected at, a little under 9%. Ricky Fowler is actually only at 6.5%, and I've got him started. Yes, now he's, very high in my model. But there's a lot of motivation for Ricky this week. He is right on the bubble. He is 125th in the FedEx Cup standings. Top 125 make the FedEx Cup playoffs. So Ricky is on, quite literally, the razor's edge of making or missing the FedEx Cup playoffs. So, if you want to use that narrative of, he's got a lot to play for, he's going to be dialed in, then yeah, absolutely. I'm using him simply just because, he's 12th in my model, and he's been playing better as of late. But also, if you want to use the narrative that he's got too much pressure on him, he's going to fold, you can certainly use that narrative too. But if I'm gravitating in the 8Ks, particularly the high 8Ks, I'm staying away from Seamus Power. I'm going with Kevin Na and more so Ricky Fowler this week. Now, I'm generally not a Ricky Fowler, I don't want to say fan or truther. He has been playing better as of late. He was really bad at the 3M, but what Ricky is known for is his putting, It looks like his putting is starting to come back around. It looks like it's starting to come back around. So I'm going to jump on this train, kind of like Sung Jae. I think I'm going to try to start on this train, get on this train before it really starts moving again. Because it wasn't that long ago when Ricky Fowler was one of the top players in the world because of his putting. You know, and that's starting to show itself again. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Date. You know, he gains almost 6 strokes at the 3M. Gains 4 there. He gains 4.5. When he was struggling earlier this year and so on, I mean, he was losing these amounts of strokes. I mean, he made the cut at the Arnold Palmer losing 7 strokes on the greens. That's usually not a Ricky performance. So I'm starting to believe the game is coming back to Ricky. So I'm on him, especially now seeing that he is only at 6.5 projected ownership. I'll take Ricky if I'm dabbling in this price range. Absolutely. A bit of a spoiler alert here when we go to our, projecting lineups and making a stars and scrubs and a balanced lineup. I'm not in this range very often. I'm trending towards a stars and scrubs approach this week. But at the 8Ks, I'm generally at Kevin Na and Ricky Fowler, especially in the high 8K range. In the low 8K range, I've just been kind of staying away from this area. I've been, again, stars and scrubs, so I'm going, mid 7s, maybe dipping my toe in the high 7s, but not very much. So I've been avoiding this area altogether. I don't know. Schwartzel's okay, but again, he's fairly chalky around this area. Nobody else is really all that inspiring. I mean, Rose is it's 41st in my model. I have no idea where his game is. Van Rooyen, just no. I mean, he's the Will Zalatoris of this range for me, just a complete fade. So yeah, that's where I'm at on the 8Ks. Moving into the 7s, the high 7s, you've got Snedeker, Mito, Pereira, Vegas, Poston, Glover, Gooch, Kazire, Hughes, Lebiota, so on. The overwhelming chalk in this area is Lebiota at 15%. And I like Lebiota. If he's the most chalky player, I can fade it. I can fade it this week. Bermuda is not, he does not like Bermuda greens. As much as he's been putting spectacularly, this is just simply a game theory play. Because, he's red hot as well. Kind of like Seamus Power. He's just red hot right now. But if he's 15% ownership, I feel like I can find other, leverage, other value at this part of the price board, and I'll basically challenge Hank Lebiota. 3 straight top 10s, 2 of those being top 5s. Yes, that's fantastic. But this is just purely a game theory play. If you want to play Hank Lebiota and want to ride the momentum, I can't blame you. I just advise against it. But I understand the reasoning behind it, especially since he's on the lower end of the top 7Ks, if that makes sense. For the high dollar amount 7Ks, 75 and above, he's on the lower end of it. But I just think I can find value elsewhere in this range. I really like Taylor Gooch this week. Second in the field in strokes gained approach over the last 36 rounds. Generally plays the par 4s of this length pretty well. He avoids his 3 putts. He likes Don Ross courses. So I like Taylor Gooch quite a bit this week. Patton Kazire, he doesn't give himself the most opportunities, and baseline he's not been great from this proximity, but lately he's been a little bit better. He's still not great. He's always been a good putter. Especially, I think Bermuda is his best putting surface. Yeah, Bermuda is his best putting surface by far. So I don't mind Patton Kazire this week at all. He's the same price as Lebiota, and you're giving me 11.5% versus 15 on Leviota. I mean, 11.5 still, more than what I would call a pivot, but it's still more unique than Leviota. But in this range, there is a lot of common plays here. So it seems like players, contestants are gravitating to this part of the price board. I mean, in here, you only have 3 true pivot plays. JT Poston is at 5.5%. I'm no thanks on JT Poston. Lucas Glover, who I actually have starred, I have 19th in my data model. He's at 4% projected ownership. Let's look at Lucas Glover here real quick. If it'll ever load. Maybe. Just not a good putter overall. Bermuda is by far his worst. But he generally he plays his best on easy courses, and this is an easy course. Did not have a very good St. Jude, missed the cut at the Open, but he won the John Deere just last month. He's had some high finishes here lately. His putting is in good form. Now overall, he has not been a good putter in his career, but he's in good form with the putter. So I don't think off the tee is going to matter that much. I don't mind Lucas Glover this week. He's by no means my top play. But if you're looking for some, he is the true pivot at this area. Him and Mackenzie Hughes are at 4%. JT Poston's at 5.5%. Those are your 3 pivots in this range. So if you're telling me that Hank Leviota is chalk, and for 100 more I can get Lucas Glover, who's rated better in my model, I'll take Glover every time, and just try to find $100 savings somewhere else. So yeah, I don't mind Glover. I think even though it's only one apart in my rankings, I think I much prefer Taylor Gooch this week to Glover. But if Glover's a pure pivot, which he is, Glover's fine. Glover's fine for this week. You've got Snedeker at 11%. Mito and Vegas are both at 12.5%. Gooch is at 12%. Kazire's at 11.5%. That's the end of the upper 7Ks. Again, I'll fade Leviota. I understand if you want to ride the momentum, ride the hot streak. I can't blame you, but you're gonna be exposing yourself to a lot of 5v5s doing that. So I'm much more comfortable taking Gooch, taking Glover. Might even throw some Johnny Vegas in there. He's at 12.5%, which is still high, but it's less than Leviota. So yeah. Now we moved into the lower 7s, 75 and below. No real chalk here, just a couple of common-ish plays. At 7,400, you got Chez Reavie. And he's, ninth in my model for a reason. He's generally not a very good putter, or at least he hasn't been lately, particularly on Bermuda. Yeah, when I say particularly on Bermuda, I mean on Bermuda. He is not very good, but he's just not a good putter in general. He's had, a couple of top 20s in the past 3 events. He made the cut at the Open Championship. Wasn't great, but he made the cut. So, if he's the most chalky play in this area, even though he's 9th on my model, I can fade it. I can fade that pretty easily. He's not the best on short and easy courses. He doesn't play the par 4s of this length on short and easy courses well. I can fade it. It's meh. If this is the area you want to choose your chalk, it's okay. And he's certainly the less chalky of the choices to make. If you're going to choose your chalk somewhere, this is the least chalky of them. You had Henley at 18.5. You had Webb Simpson at 18.5. You move up some. Where was it? Let's see. Henley, Seamus Power was at 15.5. Leviota was 15. So if you're comfortable eating chalk, this would be an area to eat it, because he's only at 13.5. Where do you go? There he is. He's only at 13.5, so I can see it. I'm just going different places because I am eating the chalk at Webb and Russell Henley. But he is the main play in this area. You have Harold Varner and Zach Johnson at 10 and 9.5% respectively. So Varner's at 10, ZJ's at 9.5. Again, fades for me. I've just not been gravitating towards this area of the board a lot, at least in the mid sevens. Again, Reavie would be my play, but he's the chalkiest of the bunch, so I don't have to play Reavie. If I've been gravitating to this area of the board, it's been Reavie. But I mean, CT Pan, it's not a terrible play either. He's at 4.5%. I mean, he's just outside my top 25. He's more of a par person than a opportunities gained guy. But he's not terrible. He's not great on short and easy courses. Putting will always be his bugaboo, but if he's a volatile putter, you can accept that. Bermuda's not his best, but he's been a volatile putter. This is what I like. If I'm going to see red numbers in putting, this is what I want to see. I want to see some negative and then a positive, particularly a big positive, and then you lose some, and then a positive, a big positive, a pretty big negative. He's volatile with the putter. Because if you hit the weeks where he has one of these, now granted the rest of his game this week was shit, but if you get a week with 2.7 strokes gained and the rest of these stay consistent, you're gonna get your money's worth in a DFS play at that price point. That's what I'm getting at. At 7,400, if you get a positive putting week from CT Pan, which again, that's a big if, but he's shown that he can do it. Will Zalatoris has only shown it a couple of times. That's the difference between CT Pan and Will Zalatoris. Zalatoris is consistently bad on the greens. CT Pan's just volatile. And I much prefer the volatile as opposed to the great player that just shows bad putting. So I don't mind CT Pan in this area if you're venturing around here. He's, like I said, he's only at 4%. Honestly, other than Reavie and the two at the 2,750s, Varner and ZJ, most of these guys are pivots. I like Chris Kirk a lot. I like Chris Kirk quite a bit this week. I mean, he's first on Don Ross courses. He's second at short, easy par fours. He avoids his three putts. I like Chris Kirk a lot this week. Even though he's rated higher in my model, I'm higher on Chris Kirk than Joel Damon, but I'm high on Joel Damon this week too. And shoot, both of them are, right at 9%. So, I mean, they're not exactly the most unique, but if you're going to give me 200 less on Joel Damon and Chris Kirk than Ches Reavie, who's 200 more and quite a bit more ownership, give me Kirk and Damon. Now, I understand that Damon is 8th and Kirk's 15th. I'm actually playing Kirk more often than I am Damon. Again, that's just kind of a gut feel thing. But, I mean, both of these guys, I much prefer these two to Ches, considering ownership. So, that's where I'm going or leaning in the 7Ks. I mean, literally everybody else is a pure pivot. I mean, Brandon Hagee's you can understand why from my model, but he's at 1%. Dylan Fratelli is at 0.5%. I mean, these guys are really low on my model, but I mean, yeah. So there, you've got a lot of unique down here if you're willing to avoid Ches Reavie. Ches Reavie's at 13.5, and then the 275s are 10 and 9.5. So yeah, I'm all about Chris Kirk, Joel Damon this week. Aaron Wise at 7,000, I really like. A lot of people are gravitating towards Ryan Armour, and I understand why. He plays short courses well. He plays easy courses well. he's not a good putter on bent. He's in pretty good form, but again, these two fields are, while they're comparable to the field quality this week, you still have some, big name players. The Barbasol had maybe two, and Ryan Armour backed his way into this top five. He played well at the 3M, but he had three performances of fairly middling results, or two bad results, two miscuts and a very mediocre one. He had some miscuts run in here, so I'm just not on the I'm not on the Ryan Armour bandwagon this week. I'm bearish on him, but I understand the narrative behind him. He rated out very well in most of the models I built leading up to the mixed model. I'll come back to it. We'll do a custom stat model for the last 24 rounds. Again, this is not the mix. This is just the base. And I think Ryan Armour's pretty high in it, if I recall, if it decides to load. Again, guys, while we have this pause, please jump in chat. Let me know what you all are looking at, what you're thinking. Where are your pivot plays this week? Yeah, Ryan Armour's 7th in the, what I'll call the base custom model. 25% approach, all this stuff with no Don Ross or short easy courses, just on a baseline over the last 24 rounds. Yeah, Ryan Armour's 7th. So I understand the reasoning behind it. But when I started adding the conditions of short and easy and Ross designs and all that stuff, he's okay. He's 36, but at 17% ownership, the third highest projected owned player in the field, no thanks. I'll play Aaron Wise. I'll play Doc Redman at the literal same price point when, let's see, Wise is 5%, Redman's 5%. And they're rated higher in my model anyway. Give me it. Wise is bad at 3 putts. Okay. He's, top end on the approaches. He's pretty elite from a baseline of proximity. He's been, almost as good lately, so I'm confident that he's very good from the proximity ranges. He's not the best, but he's not terrible at Don Ross designs. He plays pretty well on short, easy courses. Yeah, give me some Aaron Wise. I'm fine with that. Doc Redman, even better. He's long-term on Bermuda, he hasn't been good. But everything else you saw, there were no other red stats in there. He plays well when it's easy. This is an easy course. It's supposed to be calm. He has been, not only his putting, his game has just been volatile. Some weeks his off the tee game's good. And some weeks his irons are good. Some weeks his around the green are good. So he's been volatile. Not just with the putter, but he's just been a whack-a-mole style player. But when he puts it somewhat together, he still lost just a little bit off the tee, but when he puts it all together, now granted he might not put 6, 5, and whatever up, but he has some high finishes here. And if you're paying as little as you are for Doc Redman, 7,000, and he's at 5% versus Ryan Armour, who is 12% more projected ownership, there's no contest. Give me Doc Redman. Now, Ryan Armour is certainly the safer play, but I'll say I think Ryan Armour's floor is, Doc Redman's floor is just a bottom out, miscut, just a 15-point fantasy point weekend, or week, Thursday and Friday, just bad. I don't think Ryan Armour has that in him. I think Ryan Armour's fairly safe to make the cut. But if you're asking me who has the upside of, one, winning the tournament, and, more realistically, who's going to give you the best chance to win your contest in whatever DFS, platform, contest, whatever that you're playing in, Doc Redman's going to be much higher upside. Much, much higher upside. So that's it for the 7Ks. Yes, Louis is withdrawn. Louis and Patrick Reed have both withdrawn. So make sure you check your lineups whenever. If you've put your lineups in already, make sure you've checked that you haven't put those or you don't have them in there. But yes, you are correct, Josh. Louis is withdrawn. Patrick Reed is withdrawn. That's the only two that I know of so far. We're getting late into a Wednesday, but those are the only two I know of. Moving down to the high 6Ks, the top play in the high 6Ks is Brian Stewart. He's number one in my model of all players, not just lower priced. I mean, he's just number one in my model. So I can't. This is chalk. I'll eat at some point this week. I'm gonna try to stay away from it a little bit, just because he's the most common play in this area. But I mean, if he's number one in the model, I'm going to use him. But somebody who is definitely not as common as Brian Stewart still rates out fairly well, according, if you're listening to me, which, I mean, I appreciate that you're listening to me. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But Scott Stallings is a name to look at. Stewart, I see Stewart at 12.5%. Are you a Fantasy National member, Josh? I'm getting mine at Fantasy National. But yeah, so I like Scott Stallings this week. And I see Scott Stallings at 3.5. Again, all these stats are, okay, yeah. So I know of Ben Raza on Awesemo. I'm sure Ben's not the only one on Awesemo, or maybe he is, but I'm well aware of Ben. Ben's great. Ben's fantastic. Fantasy National is where I get all of mine, and again, Fantasy National has him at 12.5%. So, I mean, I'm going to use Brian Stewart this week for the simple fact that he's one of the lower end players on the price board, and rates out so well. Number one for me, but he doesn't have a bad statistic this week, at least from what I'm valuing. He's good on his approaches. He's elite on par fours and par fours of this distance. He's generally a good putter. I think Bermuda is one of his best, if not his best. Yeah, so that and POA. We're not on bent, so that's good. So yeah, I mean, and Brian Stewart actually sneakily has been playing pretty well. 3 straight top 15s. He had a pretty bad Rocket Mortgage, but his putter's still there. Off the tee, I don't think is going to matter just as much this week, especially length. Length's not going to matter at all with all the forced layups this course has off the tee. So I think this sets up well for Brian Stewart, Kevin Na, all that. So we get the top. Do you see more of a balanced approach? It's hard to say, only because, and for those who don't have chat up, Josh's question was, since it's weak at the top, do you see more of a balanced approach? That's hard to say because Webb and Russell Henley are the two most projected owned players. So my guess is that a lot of people are gravitating towards Webb. Henley, M's up there as well. I'm certainly taking a contrarian approach this week. I'm going stars and scrubs. I've been fumbling with a lot of Hideki plus Webb, so the top 2 players on the board. I've been fumbling a lot with those style of lineups. As you can see, I'm completely out on Will Zalatoris this week. And with Louis and Reed gone, you're right. There's not a lot up here at the top of the board. So I think people will gravitate towards Webb, especially since it's a short course where length doesn't matter. Generally, that's going to be a Webb Simpson style course. That's going to be a Kevin Na style course. But my issue with balance this week is where are you starting your balanced build? Are you starting with Henley? Are you starting with Siwoo or Sungjae? But not only that, where is your bottom? So I think a lot of people are bottoming out at Brian Stewart, at least from what I'm seeing on Fantasy National, at 12.5. But if that's the case, where's your unique? Where's your uniqueness? That's where I'm seeing the issue with building a balanced lineup this week. That's why I'm trying what I think is the contrarian approach with stars and scrubs. So like I said, I've built a lot of lineups with Hideki and Webb. I've tried putting Sungjae in a couple of lineups. I like Russell Henley even though he's chalk. I'm using Henley quite a bit this week. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity down here in the 7s and 6s. A lot of opportunity. But to finish out the 6Ks here real quick, like I said, you got Stewart at 12.5, and then you've got the only other one in the high 6Ks is Norlander at 9.5%. Where's he at? 6,600. Norlander, I mean, yeah, he's okay. I've got Villegas listed higher. Yeah, of course, Josh. Thanks for joining in the chat, as always. I mean, anything else you want to see, let me know. But yeah, Villegas, I mean, I got Villegas ranked higher. I understand Norlander, but I'm just, if you're telling me he's at 9.5%, I'll find my uniqueness elsewhere. But the problem with stars and scrubs this week that I am seeing, and that's why I am bottoming out as well at Brian Stewart. I mean, technically, I do have Russell Knox starred, and Russell Knox is only at, where is he? 67. Russell Knox is only at 3%. So I mean, Russell Knox rates out very well. He's certainly a volatile play. This is the kind of the Ryan Armour versus Doc Redman debate we had just a bit ago. Ryan Armour is a much safer play. I think he'll make the cut, but his winning upside is low, whereas Doc Redman could miss the cut and have you a 15-point week. But I'm much more confident in Doc Redman actually winning the golf tournament, and especially winning the contest that you're in, as opposed to Ryan Armour, because Ryan Armour is the third most projected owned player right now at 17%. So, but coming back to Russell Knox is kind of like a Doc Redman. He's going to be volatile. I mean, 3 of his last 4, he's missed the cut. He's been bad putting lately. But again, when you're showing red, I want to see flashes of green and high green. Gain 3 strokes, gain 2.5. Now that's not enough to have me offset this red. I've got him starred just because he was, I think he's 7th in my model. I'm kind of shy on Russell Knox, but I don't mind using him, especially if he's at 3% ownership, projected ownership. That's going to give you a lot of leverage. But as you can see here, the rest of the price board here, I don't have any stars at all. These guys, I mean, to me, if you're venturing down here, it's going to be dicey. It's going to be pretty dicey. And a lot of people are feeling the same way. You have Michael Gellerman, who was a common play or common bet last week at the Barracuda. He is at the bare minimum of 6,000. Where is he? Michael Gellerman, 71st. So, I mean, he's rated the best on my 6,000s, but I just don't want to come anywhere near this range. I mean, there's a lot of red around here. So, if you're coming down to the literal barrel, I would suggest Michael Gellerman, but I would try to save some money elsewhere and bring this up to at least, I don't know, at least maybe Percy at 63. McCarthy maybe at 64. But again, I've been bottoming out at Stewart. The problem for me when I'm going stars and scrubs, I'm going Hideki, Webb, and then basically 4 guys in and around this price range. I have fumbled with Knox. I really like Matt Kuchar this week. Where's Cooch? Kuchar has a projected ownership of 2.2%. And I love Kuchar this week. He has not been playing well. I understand that. If there was ever a get-right course for Matt Kuchar, it is Sedgefield in Greensboro. He's best on Bermuda. He's good when it's easy. It's supposed to be calm this week. Again, his putter has not been cooperating, but over a long term, he's been good with the putter. So, is this a short-term bad run? I mean, again, look at he missed the cut at the Open and the U.S. Open. Now, the miscut at the 3M is not nearly the 2 majors, clearly, so that's worrisome. But he actually gained strokes there. But, he had a run of top 20s here April and early May. So, the game hasn't completely lost him. I like Matt Kuchar a lot at 2 point whatever percent. Oh, yeah. So, I've been putting a lot of teams with Kuchar and Stewart at the bottom, Knox and Stewart, Knox and Kuchar, and doing about 4 guys in this price range-ish. Sometimes I've ventured up into 77 for Gooch, and then done 3 guys under 7 like Stewart, Knox, and Kuchar. But that's when I'm trying to build the stars and scrubs. But hopefully that gives you all some idea on the price board and where I'm sitting at. Before I switch to the Excel view, let's take a look at the weather really quick. So tomorrow, during golf, it's going to be hot, it appears, but very calm winds. Max of 12 in the morning, but sustained to 5 or 6. That's not a lot by any means. And then Friday looks like it picks up a little bit, but again, nothing too astronomical where you have to worry about it. I don't think it's going to be hot all week. Sunday looks like it cools off, but it looks like there's a lot of rain in the forecast Saturday and Sunday. Saturday night into Sunday morning. Sunday looks like it cools off quite a bit. It gets more windy. But there's nothing here that I see that would indicate a strong AM-PM split or anything to that effect. So I wouldn't consider that in building any of your lineups. So that's going to be it for the web page view. Give me 1 second as I switch over to Microsoft Excel. And oh shoot, did I hit the wrong button? Maybe I did. So for, why is that? There it is. Sorry, messing with my software. So let's run through this here very quickly. There's no need to go pause the video, stop video, and go back. This is a straight transfer from Fantasy National to here. My rankings, the pricing, and all that stuff. As I mentioned, Louis and Patrick Reed have withdrawn, so that's why they're in black and red. For those who play tiers contests, let's run through that really quickly. There were only 3 in Tier 1, and Louis out, so now there's 2. It's Webb and Hideki. Flip a coin. Webb seems to be the more popular play, but flip a coin. There's not a lot to distinguish those two. Tier 2 is pretty clear bet for me, even though he's the most commonly played. It's Russell Henley. Not particularly close. Kokrak's okay. I like Wolf more than Kokrak, even though he's lower in the model. I'm not on Bubba this week, and clearly I talked about Will. I'm just out on Will. Tier 3, not a lot here in Tier 3. My highest is Brian Harmon. He's okay. I'd actually probably go Sung Jae if I'm making a tiers lineup. Sung Jae, Tommy Fleetwood are back-to-back. Siwoo is okay. Adam Scott, no thank you. And that's it for tier 3, it looks like. So yeah, I would lean Sungjae, but you know, Sungjae or Tommy, I like both of these over Brian Harmon for tier 3. Tier 4, again, pretty clear. I'm on Ricky this week. You can certainly write whatever narrative you want to on Ricky. The pressure gets to him and he folds. He rises to the occasion since he's on the base, you know, on the border. I like Ricky this week. I like Kevin Na this week. I don't think you can go wrong with either of these two. Na is the more common play, so maybe Ricky is the pivot play in tiers. I'm not terribly familiar with tiers, just full transparency. I like Woodland this week. I like the other two better. Power, no thanks. Rose, definitely no thanks. And, well, when you have to scroll, it's never good for tiers, so obviously not on Bobby Mack. Tier 5, Snedeker is the top for me. Schwartzel, and neither are all-inspiring. Kevin Streelman, Munoz. I'm definitely out on Kisner. Van Rooyen, Mito. Not a lot here in Tier 5. I guess I'd go with Snedeker by default just because I don't have a strong feel for any of these guys. And I was fading all these guys in Classic or priced range anyway. I think I'd go Snedeker by default. Maybe Streelman? I don't feel great about Tier 5. Tier 6, yeah, Pat Kazire, who I like this week. Taylor Gooch, I really like this week, so I would go Taylor Gooch. CT Pan, okay. Varner, Brandon Grace, no thanks. Leviota, I mean, if you want to ride the hot putter, sure. He's in great form. And then again, if you have to scroll, no thanks. Mackenzie Hughes. So there's the tiers for you. Because I've got so many factors that I have in my custom model, I am going to try to get this to where you all can see all of it. You see I've frozen the panes. We'll just have to, I'm going to sort this really quick by price. That's column B. Oh, shoot. It's going to do this thing again. Well, let's just make this easy. Hide columns. You can somewhat see that now. I really wish. Alright. Format, column width. Make all of these 8. There we go. Now you can see it. And if you want to know what any of these are, just let me know because they got scrunched up. But let's make our first lineup here a balanced approach because it appears to be what people are probably going to gravitate towards. We're still going to put Webb at the number 1 spot here on a balanced approach, and then probably going all the way down to Brian Stewart. And again, this is just a guess at what people are doing. This is not what I'm advocating. It's just giving you an idea of common plays in this lineup and maybe guys to avoid, or I might throw in somebody that I like. So I think this is probably the top and the bottom of this area. Probably second would be Russell Henley, and I can't argue against either of these two guys. This is the chalk I'm going to eat this week if I build a more balanced lineup. So those two, I'm pretty sure people are going to do probably something similar to this. You've got Stewart and Armour, Simpson and Henley up top, and then you kind of mix and match around the 8K. I'm going to unhide these and make this a little bit easier for me. Unhide columns. Yeah, you all can still see that good. We have about 8,000 to play with here. Let's see. Now I can... Schwartzel, some people liked playing. Streelman, some people were okay. Let's kind of look at that range again here. Around 8,000. So yeah, people are gravitating towards Schwartzel. Seamus Power. People are playing Seamus Power quite a bit. So that, and you got 7,600. Kazire. Lebiota. He's very chalky. So this is a very, very chalky looking balanced approach. These guys were all in the high. I think the lowest owned here is 13%, which is pretty high, maybe even higher. He's at 18. He's at 18. Power is 15.5. He's 15. Armor is 17. Steward's at 13. So yeah, Steward's your lowest owned guy in this lineup at 12.5%. So that's a very chalky, balanced lineup. I actually like these two, and I like Steward. I mentioned earlier, Armor, I would change for Doc Redman. I'm okay fading Hank Lebiota. I've been gravitating towards Chris Kirk if I'm in this range. And that leaves me, 8,900? I don't think there's anybody around there. I mean, 8,900 is Bobby Mack. I don't like it. Kevin Nall, I like this week. That leaves $100 on the table if you wanted to move stuff around. But there's a balanced approach that I might, look at. And then Stars and Scrubs, this is where I've been trending towards this week. I've been going Hideki and Webb. I'm going to avoid Knox right now if I can, just to show you all. So it looks like I've got 74 and 7,300 to play with here. Somebody that I mentioned Doc Redman, another person that I kind of mentioned, but not as in depth. I kind of like Aaron Wise this week. He plays well at the Sony, which is a comp course. And that leaves me 77, which conveniently I was telling you all about was a player I liked who doesn't seem like he's getting a lot of attention, Taylor Gooch, or Lucas Glover. So there's a 50,000 on the mark Stars and Scrubs build that I've been toying around with and using very similar players rotating in and out. To Josh's point earlier, because it is so weak at the top, I'm imagining guys aren't putting both of these together. They're trying to find their uniqueness, in the eights and the nines, or in the low nines, the eights, and maybe the sevens. I'm trying to play the Stars and Scrubs. Kuchar's at 2.5% right now. I'll take Kuchar all day. He's ranked 4th in my model. Again, this could bite me, but he doesn't have any bad statistics for the ones that I've put in the custom model. He's if there was ever a get right course for Kuchar, this is it. I like Matt Kuchar quite a bit this week. Somebody else that, if I wanted to drop Webb or drop Hideki, again, I don't mind Ricky Fowler this week. I really don't. Again, there's so many narratives you can put there, but I don't mind Ricky. So hopefully that gives you all a good idea for your contests this week in DFS. In the comments or on social media, let me know what strategy you use. What were some players that you gravitated towards? Who were you fading this week? I just want to know how you did. Let me know that, because I always want to hear about successes and failures. Honestly, I just want to hear, if you used my analysis and you failed, what failed? What didn't work for you? I always want the feedback. That's how you get better. That's how we get better. I'll give you better advice. I've been somewhat successful, but by no means am I perfect, and that's why I always tell you, as Josh mentioned, he goes to Awesemo. I will never tell you that I'm your only source. I shouldn't be your only source of information. I'm glad that you come to me for information as a source of information, but I shouldn't be the only one. There's a lot of great content out there, and perhaps they tell you something that I don't, or they take a different angle on something, and hopefully I do the same, and I give a unique angle on something that maybe they don't. But anyway, that's going to do it for the Wyndham DFS Tactics show. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it, and good luck in all your contests this week. May all your bets be profitable.